Rain hammered against the windshield like bullets from the sky. Maya gripped the steering wheel tighter, her knuckles white with tension. The wipers were working overtime, but they couldn't keep up with the downpour. She could barely see 5 feet ahead of her on this lonely Montana highway. Her phone sat silent in the cup holder. No signal bars, just like her luck tonight. Maya pressed harder on the gas pedal, desperate to reach the next town before this storm got any worse. She'd been driving for 12 hours straight, running on coffee and determination to put as many miles as possible between herself and the mess she'd left behind in Seattle. Every few minutes, her phone would light up with another angry text from David. She didn't need to read them to know what they said. The same controlling words he'd been using for months. Come back, stop being dramatic. You're throwing away everything we built together, but Maya knew better now. David had built a cage, not a relationship. The radio crackled with static. Even the weather report was breaking up, but she caught enough words to know this storm was going to get worse before it got better. Flash flood warnings. Possible tornadoes, great, just what she needed. Maya had never driven through country this empty before. In Seattle, there was always another gas station, another hotel, another safe place to stop just around the corner. Out here, she'd been driving for an hour without seeing so much as a farmhouse. Just endless stretches of road, cutting through dark fields and rolling hills. She thought about calling her sister back in California, but what would she say? That she'd finally walked away from her 6-figure job and her perfect boyfriend because she felt like she was suffocating. Lisa would think she'd lost her mind. Maybe she had. The truth was, Maya had been planning this escape for weeks, secretly moving money to a separate account. Research about small towns where a lawyer might be needed. Dreams of a simpler life. That didn't involve 80-hour work weeks and a man who scheduled their conversations. Like business meetings. Lightning split the sky, followed immediately by thunder that shook her little Honda. The storm was right on top of her now. Maya squinted through the rain looking for any sign of shelter. A gas station, a diner. Even a rest stop would do. That's when her car made the sound. A horrible grinding noise like metal eating metal. The engine coughed once, twice, then died. Completely. Maya coasted to the shoulder as her headlights dimmed and went out. She sat in the darkness for a moment, listening to the rain drum on the roof. This couldn't be happening. Not here. Not now. She tried turning the key, but nothing happened. Not even a click. Steam was rising from under the hood, visible in brief flashes when lightning lit up the sky. Whatever was wrong, it wasn't something she could fix on the side of the road in a thunderstorm. Maya pulled out her phone, hoping against hope for even one bar of signal. Nothing. She was completely cut off from the world, stranded on a highway that felt like the edge of nowhere. Panic started to creep in. She'd seen enough horror movies to know how this story usually went. Woman alone, broken down car, middle of nowhere. But she pushed those thoughts away. This was real life, not a movie. She just needed to think, through the driver's side window. She thought she saw something. A faint glow in the distance, maybe a mile across the dark fields. It was hard to tell in all the rain, but it looked like lights. Real lights, not just lightning. Maya had 2 choices. Stay in the car and hope someone would drive by eventually, or walk toward those lights and pray they belonged to someone who would help her. The first option felt safer, but she could freeze to death waiting. And who knew how long it would be before another car came down this empty road? She grabbed her purse and checked inside. Pepper spray, wallet, the little flashlight her dad had. Insisted she carry. Not much protection, but better than nothing. Maya took a deep breath, said a quick prayer, and opened the car door. The cold hit her like a slap. Within 3 seconds, she was soaked through her thin jacket. The rain was ice cold and relentless, driven by wind that nearly knocked her off her feet. Maya started walking toward the distant lights, her dress shoes slipping on the muddy shoulder. Every step was a struggle. The rain made it impossible to see clearly, and the wind kept trying to push her backward. Her business suit, so perfect for Seattle boardrooms, was useless against Montana weather. Water poured down her face and neck, making her shiver uncontrollably, twice. She stumbled and almost fell. Once she stepped in a puddle that was deeper than it looked, soaking her feet completely. But she kept walking toward those lights. Because they were the only hope she had? The lights belonged to a ranch house? She realized as she got closer. A real old-fashioned ranch with wooden fences and a long driveway. Warm yellow light poured from the windows, and she could see smoke rising from the chimney. It looked like something from a postcard about the American West. Maya stumbled up the front steps, her legs shaking from cold and exhaustion. The porch provided blessed relief from the driving rain. She stood there for a moment, trying to work. Up the courage to knock. What if no one was home? What if they didn't want to help a stranger? But she didn't have much choice. Maya raised her hand and knocked on the solid wooden door. Once, twice, 3 times. She could hear movement inside, footsteps getting closer. The door opened, and Maya found herself looking up at a tall man with the kindest eyes she'd ever seen. He was wearing jeans and a flannel shirt that looked soft with age. His brown hair was messy like he'd been sleeping, and he had the weathered hands of someone who worked outside for a living. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Maya knew she must look like a drowned rat, standing there in her soaked business suit with her hair plastered to her head. She was shivering so hard she could barely speak. "Please," she managed to say through chattering teeth. "My car broke. Down about a mile back. I'm so sorry to bother you, but I just need somewhere warm for the night. I can pay you. I'm not asking for charity." The cowboy looked at her soaked clothes and frightened face. She could see him taking in the situation, making quick calculations about risk and kindness. For a terrifying moment, Maya thought he might close the door and leave her standing in the storm dot instead. He stepped aside and gestured for her too. "Come in. Course you can come in," he said in a voice like warm honey. "You're half frozen. Let's get you dried off." The warmth of the house hit Maya like a physical force. She stood dripping on the hardwood floor, afraid to move and make a mess. The living room was simple but comfortable, with a stone fireplace, crackling with real logs and furniture that looked made for actual living instead of showing off. Names. "Tyler," the cowboy said, disappearing for a moment and returning with the biggest, fluffiest towel Maya had ever seen. "You just wrap up in this and sit by the fire. I'll get some coffee going." Maya wanted to cry with relief. After hours of fear and cold and uncertainty, she'd found exactly what she needed. A safe harbor in the storm, and Tyler with his gentle eyes and quiet kindness felt like the answer to a prayer she hadn't even known she was saying. Maya woke up slowly, confused about where she was. Sunlight was streaming through unfamiliar windows covered with cheerful gingham curtains. The bed was softer than anything she'd slept on in years, and the room smelled faintly of lavender and wood polish. For a moment she thought she might be dreaming, then it all came rushing back. The storm. The broken car. The kind cowboy who'd saved her from freezing to death on his porch. Tyler. She sat up in the guest bed, pulling the warm quilt around her shoulders, and listened to the sounds of morning on a working ranch dot. She could hear roosters crowing somewhere. Outside, the gentle lowing of cattle in the distance, and what sounded like someone chopping wood. It was so different from her apartment in Seattle, where the only morning sounds were traffic and construction noise. Maya found her clothes from the night before hanging on a wooden rack near the window. Tyler must have hung them there to dry. While she slept, they were wrinkled but clean and mostly dry. She dressed quickly and made her way toward the kitchen. Following the incredible smell of bacon and coffee. Tyler was standing at an old-fashioned stove, cooking what looked like enough breakfast for 6 people. He'd changed from his late-night clothes into work jeans and a blue button-down shirt that made his eyes look even warmer. His hair was still a little messy, but in a way that suggested he'd been up and working for hours already. "Morning," said, without turning around like he'd heard her footsteps. "Hope you slept okay. Coffee's fresh if you want some." Maya poured herself a cup from the pot on the counter. The coffee was strong and perfect, nothing like the watery stuff from her office break room. "I slept better than I have in months," she said honestly. "Thank you for everything. I know you didn't have to help me." Tyler just shrugged, like saving strangers from storms was something he did every Tuesday. Already called my buddy Jake, who runs the garage in town. He'll come take a look at your car this morning. Maya felt her stomach drop. Is it going to be expensive? She had some savings, but not unlimited funds for major car repairs. Won't know till Jake sees it, but from what you described, might be your transmission. Those can be tricky. Maya sat down at the kitchen table, a beautiful piece of wood that looked handmade. Everything in Tyler's house had that same quality, simple, well-made, and obviously cared for. It was the opposite of her modern apartment with its sterile furniture and neutral colors. Tyler set a plate in front of her loaded with scrambled eggs, bacon, and what looked like homemade biscuits with butter and jam. You don't have to feed me, Maya protested, even though her mouth was watering. Ranch rule, Tyler said with a small smile. Nobody leaves here hungry. They ate in comfortable silence for a while. Maya couldn't remember the last time she'd had a real breakfast. In Seattle, she usually grabbed a protein bar and coffee on her way to the office. This felt like something from another era, when people actually sat down and enjoyed their food. So, Tyler said eventually, Seattle Lawyer, huh? Long way from home. Maya almost choked on her coffee. Had she told him that? The night before was a blur of cold and fear and relief. How did you know? Your business cards fell out of your purse when you were getting your phone last night. Maya Chung, corporate attorney, looked fancy. Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks. Her business cards did look fancy, expensive paper, embossed lettering, the whole deal. They'd seemed so important 6 months ago. Now they just felt like props from someone else's life. I guess I was a lawyer, she said slowly, past tense. Tyler raised an eyebrow but didn't push. Maya found herself talking anyway, maybe because his presence felt so calm and non-judgmental. She told him about her job at the firm, working 16-hour days for partners who treated her like a machine. About David, who proposed with a spreadsheet instead of romance, planning out their next 5 years like a business merger. He had our whole life mapped out, Maya said, stirring her coffee absently. Where we'd live, when we'd have kids, what kind of car I should drive. He even picked out my engagement ring without asking what I liked. What did you like? Tyler asked quietly. Maya realized she didn't even know anymore. I used to love riding horses when I was little, and reading mystery novels, and making things with my hands. I used to paint and do pottery in college. But David said those were hobbies, not serious pursuits for a professional woman. Tyler's face darkened slightly. Sounds like he had you in a pretty tight box. More like a cage, Maya admitted, and I let him lock me in. I was so busy trying to be perfect, trying to prove I deserved success, that I forgot who I actually was. Jake arrived around 10 o'clock in a tow truck that had seen better days. He was a short, cheerful man with grease-stained overalls and a smile that suggested he genuinely enjoyed fixing things. Maya watched from the porch as he and Tyler looked under the hood of her Honda. Their conversation full of mechanical terms she didn't understand. The verdict wasn't good. Jake scratched his head and delivered the news with obvious sympathy. Transmission shot, miss. And the radiator's cracked too. Probably been running hot for a while and finally gave up. How long to fix it? Maya asked, though she suspected. She already knew the answer. Well, that's the problem. I'd have to order parts from Denver, and with the holiday weekend coming up, we're looking at maybe a week, 10 days minimum, and that's if everything goes smooth. Maya felt panic rising. In her chest, a week? She'd planned to be in Colorado by now, maybe even further south. David would have time to track her down, to send lawyers or private investigators or whatever else he could think of. How much? She asked weakly. Jake named a figure that made Maya's eyes water. It was more than she'd spent on anything except rent in the past year, but what choice did she have? Tyler must have seen the desperation on her face. You can stay here while it's getting fixed, he said simply. Ranch has plenty of room and I don't get much company anyway. Maya stared at him. I can't impose on you for a week. You barely know me. Sometimes that's the best time to help somebody, Tyler said. Before you know enough to talk yourself out of it. Jake chuckled. Tyler's got a point. And honestly, miss, the motel in town isn't much to look at. Probably cost you more than staying here anyway. Maya felt overwhelmed by Tyler's kindness. In her world, nobody did anything without expecting something in return. There were always strings attached, always an angle. But Tyler seemed genuinely concerned about a stranger's welfare with no apparent ulterior motive. "I'll pay you," she insisted. "For room and board, I won't be a charity case." Tyler looked like he was going to argue, but something in Maya's expression must have told him this was important to her. "If it makes you feel better," he said, "though you might change your mind once you see how much work there is around here." After Jake left with her car, Maya found herself alone with Tyler on a working ranch with nothing but time. She offered to help with whatever needed doing, partly out of boredom and partly because she genuinely wanted to be useful. Tyler seemed amused by her eagerness. "You sure about that? This isn't exactly corporate law." "I'm sure," Maya said firmly. "I want to earn my keep." Tyler looked at her city clothes, the wrinkled business suit and heeled shoes that were completely wrong for ranch work. "Well, first thing we need to do is get you dressed for the job. Emily left some clothes that might fit you." He led her upstairs to a bedroom that was obviously meant for a woman. The furniture was painted white, and there were dried flowers in vases and books stacked on the nightstand. Maya felt like she was intruding on something private. "My wife?" Tyler explained quietly, seeing her hesitation. "She passed 3 years ago. Cancer." His voice was steady, but Maya could hear the old pain underneath. "She was about your size, and she'd want her things to be useful instead of just sitting here gathering dust." Maya chose the simplest outfit she could find, jeans that fit surprisingly well, a soft cotton shirt, and sturdy boots that felt strange after years of heels. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. The woman staring back looked younger somehow, and more real. Tyler was waiting by the back door when she came downstairs. "Ready for ranch life 101?" he asked with a grin that transformed his whole face. Maya grinned back, feeling lighter than she had in years. "Ready." Maya's first lesson in ranch life started with the chickens. Tyler led her to a wooden coop surrounded by wire fencing, where about 20 hens were pecking around in the dirt. They looked harmless enough, but Maya had never been this close to farm animals in her life. "City girl, huh?" Tyler said with a gentle smile, watching her hesitate at the gate. "Is it that obvious?" Maya asked, laughing at herself. "I've never even touched a chicken before. Nothing to it. Just reach under them gentle-like and take the eggs. Most of them are pretty friendly." Tyler demonstrated with a fat red hen that barely seemed to notice him. "Though watch out for Henrietta over there, she's got attitude." Maya looked where he pointed and saw a large white chicken with beady eyes that seemed to be glaring directly at her. "Great, even the chickens don't like me," but Tyler was wrong about it being easy. Maya's first attempt resulted in a squawking, flapping explosion of feathers as the startled hen jumped off her nest. The egg she'd been trying to collect smashed on the ground, and Maya stumbled backward into Tyler's chest. "Sorry," she gasped, her heart racing from the surprise attack. Tyler steadied her with his hands on her shoulders, and for a moment they stood frozen like that, closer than they'd been since that first night on his porch. "Takes practice," Tyler said softly, not stepping away immediately. Maya could smell his aftershave mixed with hay and fresh air. It was nothing like David's expensive cologne, but somehow it made her feel safer than she'd felt in years. The second attempt went better. Maya managed to collect 3 eggs without causing a poultry riot, though Henrietta continued to eye her suspiciously from across the coop. "See? Natural talent," Tyler said, and Maya felt ridiculously proud of herself for accomplishing something so simple. They moved on to feeding the horses next. Tyler's stable housed 6 beautiful animals, from a gentle gray Marais named Stella to a spirited black stallion called Thunder, who clearly thought he owned the place. Maya was nervous at first. These animals were so much bigger than she'd expected, but Tyler showed her how to hold her hand flat when offering treats. "Horses can sense fear," Tyler explained as Stella nuzzled Maya's palm looking for carrots. "But they can sense kindness, too. Just be calm and confident." Maya found herself relaxing as the Marais' soft lips tickled her hand. There was something magical about connecting with these powerful, gentle creatures. She'd forgotten how much she'd loved horses as a child. Before her parents decided riding lessons were an unnecessary expense. I used to dream about having a horse when I was little, Maya confessed, stroking Stella's neck. My parents said it was impractical. They were probably right, but still. Dreams aren't supposed to be practical, Tyler said quietly. That's what makes them dreams. The days began to follow a rhythm that Maya had never experienced before. She'd wake up to roosters crowing instead of traffic noise, dress in borrowed jeans instead of business suits, and start each morning helping Tyler with chores that felt more meaningful than any legal brief she'd ever written. Tyler was a patient teacher, showing her how to brush the horses properly, how to repair fence posts, and how to spot signs of trouble in the animals. Maya surprised herself by being good at it. Her hands, so used to typing on keyboards, learned to handle tools and work with rope. Her body, soft from years of desk work, began to feel stronger. On the fourth day, Maya was hanging laundry on the line behind the house when her phone rang. The number made her stomach clench. David. She'd been dreading this moment, but she knew it was coming. Tyler was nearby, fixing a broken board on the porch steps. He didn't look up when her phone rang, but Maya could tell he was listening. Maya, thank God, David's familiar voice filled her ear. I've been worried sick. Your neighbor said you just packed up and left without telling anyone. What's going on? Maya took a deep breath, drawing strength from the peaceful ranch around her. I left you a note, David. I thought I was pretty clear. That wasn't a note, it was a temper tantrum. Look, I know you've been stressed about the partnership track, but running away isn't the solution. Come home so we can work this out like adults. Maya felt the old familiar pressure building in her chest, the weight of David's expectations trying to pull her back into line. But something was different now. Maybe it was the past few days of freedom, or maybe it was Tyler's quiet presence nearby, but she found her voice in a way she never had before. I'm not having a temper tantrum, David. I'm thinking clearly for the first time in years. We're not right for each other. That's ridiculous. We're perfect together. We have the same goals, the same social circle, the same 5-year plan. You're just having some kind of breakdown because of work stress. Maya almost laughed. The same goals? When had David ever asked what her goals were? He'd simply assigned her a role in his life plan and expected her to be grateful for the privilege. I don't want your 5-year plan, Maya said firmly. I don't want the corner office or the country club membership or the house in the suburbs. That looks exactly like everyone else's. I want something real. What's more real than what we built together? 3 years, Maya. 3 years down the drain because you're having some kind of midlife crisis at 30. Maya looked around at the ranch, at the clothes flapping on the line, at Tyler's strong hands working to fix something broken and make it useful again. This felt more real than anything she'd experienced in those 3 years with David. You didn't build anything with me, David. You built something and expected me to fit into it. There's a difference. Fine, if you need some time to get this out of your system, take a vacation. Go to a spa, buy some new clothes, whatever makes you feel better. But this cowboy fantasy you're living isn't reality. You're a lawyer, Maya, a successful, intelligent, professional woman. Not some farm girl playing dress-up. The condescension in his voice made Maya's anger flare. Don't call me again, David. I mean it. We're done. You can't just throw away 3 years and your entire career because you're having some kind of breakdown. I won't let you destroy your life like this. It's not your choice to make, Maya said, and hung up the phone. She stood there for a moment, shaking with adrenaline and anger. David's voice was still echoing in her head, making her doubt herself. Was she crazy to walk away from everything she'd worked for? Was this all just some elaborate form of running away? You okay? Tyler's voice was gentle, concerned. He'd finished with the porch step and was watching her with those kind eyes that seemed to see right through her. I don't know, Maya said honestly. Everyone thinks I've lost my mind. Tyler walked over to where she stood among the sheets and towels dancing in the breeze. What do you think? Maya considered the question seriously. I think I'm finding it for the first time in years. Tyler nodded slowly. That's what matters then. Maya blocked David's number and immediately felt lighter, like she'd been carrying a heavy backpack and finally set it down. Tyler didn't ask questions or offer advice. He just handed her another clothespin and let her work through her emotions. In the peaceful quiet of the ranch, that evening, they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Maya had never seen anything so beautiful in her life. In Seattle, she was lucky if she noticed whether it was day or night through her office windows. I keep thinking I should feel guilty, Maya said, watching the colors shift and change across the horizon. About walking away from my career, about leaving David, about everything. But I don't. Is that wrong? Tyler rocked slowly in his chair, considering her question. My wife used to say that guilt was just fear wearing a disguise. Fear of disappointing people, fear of making the wrong choice, fear of being judged. But sometimes the only wrong choice is the one that makes you smaller than you're meant to. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. She sounds like she was wise. She was. Emily always said life was too short to spend it living someone else's dream. Tyler's voice was soft with memory. I think she would have liked you. You've got her courage. Maya didn't feel courageous. She felt lost and scared and completely out of her depth. But maybe courage wasn't about feeling fearless. Maybe it was about being afraid and choosing to move forward anyway. As the stars began to appear in the vast Montana sky, Maya made a silent promise to herself. Whatever happened next, she wouldn't go backward. She was finally moving toward something instead of just running away from it, and that made all the difference in the world. 1 week turned into 2, and Maya found herself settling into ranch life in ways she never expected. Her hands, once soft and manicured for boardroom presentations, now bore small calluses from handling rope and tools. Her designer business, suits hung forgotten in the guest room closet, while she lived in borrowed jeans and cotton shirts that smelled like sunshine and fresh air. Maya discovered she had a natural gift for organization that translated perfectly to ranch management. Tyler's office was a disaster zone of unpaid bills, veterinary records, and feed orders scattered across every surface. Legal contracts for hay sales were mixed in with grocery lists, and important tax documents were buried under old farming magazines. How do you find anything in here? Maya asked one morning, standing in the doorway of what Tyler generously called his office. Tyler looked up from his desk, a pencil stuck behind his ear and a confused expression on his face. Mostly, just kind of remember where I put things and hope for the best. Maya rolled up her sleeves. Mind if I take a crack at this? I promise I won't throw anything away without asking. Tyler gestured helplessly at the chaos. Be my guest. Maybe you can make sense of it because I sure can't. Maya spent the next 3 days transforming Tyler's office into something that actually functioned. She created filing systems for contracts, organized receipts by category, and even found several uncashed checks that Tyler had completely forgotten about. The legal training that had felt so meaningless in her corporate job suddenly became incredibly useful in helping Tyler understand complex agricultural contracts and insurance policies. This feed contract is terrible, Maya said, reviewing a document Tyler had been ready to sign. They're trying to lock you into prices that are way above market rate, and there's a clause here that lets them change delivery dates without penalty. You could do much better. Tyler leaned over her shoulder to look at the contract, close enough that Maya could smell his aftershave and feel the warmth radiating from his body. I just figured that was standard legal stuff. Numbers make my head spin. Legal stuff is designed to confuse people, Maya explained, trying to ignore how her pulse quickened when Tyler was near. But once you know what to look for, it's not that complicated. Want me to teach you? They spent hours going through Tyler's business paperwork together. Maya explained contract terms in plain English while Tyler shared the practical realities of running a ranch. She learned about seasonal challenges, the complexities of cattle breeding, and the dozens of regulations that governed everything from water rights to organic certification. You're really good at this, Tyler said one evening as they finished, reviewing a proposed contract with a new distributor. Making complicated things make sense, I mean. Maya felt a warm glow of satisfaction. It's the first time my law degree has felt useful in years. At the firm, I was just pushing papers around to make rich people richer. This actually matters. Tyler was quiet for a moment, studying her face in the lamplight. What made you go into corporate law if you didn't like it? Maya had never really examined that question honestly before. My parents, I guess. They immigrated from Taiwan with nothing, worked themselves to death building a small business. They wanted me to have security, respectability. Corporate law seemed like the safest path to success, but you weren't happy. It wasn't a question, and Maya didn't treat it like one. I thought happiness was supposed to come later, after I'd achieved enough success to earn it, like it was a luxury I couldn't afford yet. Tyler's expression grew thoughtful. Emily used to say that postponing happiness was just another way of throwing it away. This was the first time Tyler had mentioned his wife's name since that day in the chicken coop. Maya felt honored that he was sharing something so personal, but she was also curious about the woman who had clearly meant everything to him. Tell me about her, Maya said gently. If you want to, I mean. Tyler was quiet for so long that Maya thought he wasn't going to answer. Then he got up and walked to a bookshelf, returning with a framed photograph. The picture showed a beautiful woman with laughing eyes and shoulder-length auburn hair, standing next to a much younger version of Tyler in front of the ranch house. Emily Ray, Tyler said, his voice soft with memory. We met in college. She was studying to be a teacher, and I was getting a degree in agricultural science because my dad insisted I needed more than practical experience to run a modern ranch. Maya studied the photograph. Emily looked radiant, the kind of person who probably made everyone around her feel special. She's beautiful, inside and out. Emily could make friends with anyone, the grocery store clerk, the bank president, didn't matter. She saw the good in people before she saw anything else. Tyler traced the edge of the frame with his finger. We planned to travel the world together. Emily had this list of places she wanted to see: Paris, Iceland, New Zealand, Japan. We were going to take a year off and just explore. What happened? Maya asked quietly. Cancer happened. Started as a little spot on her back that we thought was just a mole. By the time we caught it, it had spread everywhere. She fought for 2 years, but Tyler's voice trailed off. Maya felt tears pricking her eyes. I'm so sorry. Tyler set the photograph down carefully. The worst part wasn't losing her, as terrible as that was. The worst part was realizing how much time we'd wasted planning for someday instead of living for today. Emily kept saying she wished we'd gone to Paris when we first talked about it, instead of waiting for the perfect time. Is that why you left the city and came here? Tyler nodded. Everything there reminded me of the life we'd planned but never got to live. Out here, I could start over. Build something that honored her memory without being haunted by it every day. Maya understood that feeling more than she could express. Her life in Seattle had become a prison of other people's expectations and her own fear of disappointment. Coming to the ranch felt like waking up from a long, suffocating dream. She would have loved what you've built here, Maya said, gesturing around the cozy office they'd organized together. This place has so much love in it. Tyler looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. It's been lonely, though. I forgot how good it feels to share the work with someone who cares about it. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning neither of them was quite ready to acknowledge. Maya felt her heart speed up, but she forced herself to stay. Focused on the conversation. Over the following days, Tyler began sharing more stories about Emily, and Maya found herself opening up about her own past in return. She told him about her childhood dreams of becoming an artist, how she'd loved painting watercolor landscapes, but gave it up because her parents insisted it wasn't practical. She shared memories of her grandmother, who had taught her to cook traditional Chinese dishes before Maya became too busy with law school to visit. What happened to your paintings? Tyler asked one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. Packed away in my parents' attic, probably. I haven't touched the paintbrush in 10 years. That's a shame. This place could use an artist. The sunsets alone would give you enough material for a lifetime. Maya looked out at the sky, painted in brilliant shades of orange and pink that seemed almost too beautiful to be real. I probably wouldn't even remember how anymore. Bet you would. Some things are too deep in your bones to forget. The next morning, Tyler surprised Maya by driving her into town. Need supplies anyway, he said casually, but Maya noticed he parked right in front of the small art supply store on Main Street. Go on, he encouraged when Maya hesitated. Just some basic supplies? See if it feels right. Maya's hands shook slightly as she selected watercolor paints, brushes, and a pad of rough paper. The store owner, an elderly woman with paint-stained fingers, smiled knowingly. Been a while since you picked up a brush? She asked kindly. About 10 years, Maya admitted. Art has a way of calling you back when you're ready. Trust your instincts. That evening, Maya set up her makeshift easel on the porch and tried to capture the sunset. Her first attempts were clumsy, the colors muddy and the proportions all wrong, but gradually, muscle memory returned. Her hand remembered how to hold the brush, how to let the watercolors flow and blend naturally. Tyler watched from his rocking chair, not offering advice or criticism, just quiet companionship. When Maya finally set down her brush, she realized she'd painted for 3 hours without thinking about anything else. No worries about David, no anxiety about her future, no second-guessing every decision. Just the pure joy of creating something beautiful. It's not very good, Maya said, looking critically at her painting. Tyler leaned over to examine her work. The painting showed the ranch house bathed in golden evening light, with the mountains rising behind it in shades of purple and blue. It captured something essential about the place that no photograph ever could. I think it's perfect, Tyler said simply. It looks like home. Maya felt something shift inside her chest at those words. Home. When was the last time anywhere had felt like home? Her apartment in Seattle was just a place to sleep between workdays. Her childhood house had always felt more like a preparation station for real life, but this ranch, with its morning routine of animal care and evening sunsets, with Tyler's gentle presence and meaningful work, Maya's peaceful world came crashing down on a Tuesday morning when her phone rang at 6 a.m. The caller ID showed her law firm's number, and Maya's stomach immediately twisted into knots. She'd been avoiding their calls for 2 weeks, but apparently they weren't going to give up. Maya Chun speaking, she answered, stepping out onto the porch so she wouldn't wake Tyler. Maya, thank God, it was Rachel, her former assistant. Mr. Harrison has been looking for you everywhere. He's furious. There's an emergency board meeting this afternoon about the Morrison case, and they need you here now. Maya felt the familiar weight of obligation pressing down on her chest. The Morrison case was a massive corporate merger she'd been working on before she left. 6 months of her life had gone into preparing those documents. I can't come back. Rachel, I told them I was taking leave. Nobody approved any leave, Maya. They think you just disappeared, Mr. Harrison says. If you're not in the office by noon, you're fired. And Maya ... he means it. He's already talking about having security. Clean out your office. Maya sank into the porch swing, her mind reeling, fired. After 7 years of 16-hour days and sacrificing everything for the firm, they were going to fire her for taking 2 weeks to figure out her life, but the rational part of her brain was calculating numbers, her student loans, her car payment, the money she'd need to start over somewhere new. Her savings account could keep her afloat for maybe 3 months if she was careful. I need to think about this, Maya said weakly. There's nothing to think about. You have 5 hours to get here or your career is over. I'm sorry, Maya, I know. This isn't fair, but that's reality. After Rachel hung up, Maya sat on the swing for a long time, watching the sun rise over Tyler's fields. The morning was beautiful and peaceful, everything her life in Seattle wasn't. But was peace worth throwing away everything she'd worked for? Tyler found her there an hour later when he came back from feeding the horses. He took one look at her face and sat down beside her without saying anything. My firm wants me back, Maya said finally. Today or I'm fired. Tyler was quiet for a long moment, his hands folded in his lap. What do you want to do? Maya let out a bitter laugh. I don't know. 3 weeks ago, the answer would have been obvious. Go back, save my career, do what responsible adults do, but now ... Now? Now I keep thinking about what you said about Emily wishing you'd gone to Paris sooner instead of waiting for the perfect time. What if I'm doing the same thing? What if I'm throwing away my one chance to live the life I actually want because I'm scared? Tyler reached over and took her hand. Fear's a powerful thing. Makes us do all kinds of things that don't make sense when we look back on them. Naya's phone rang again. This time it was her mother. Maya Lin-chun, what is this nonsense I'm hearing about you disappearing from work? Your father and I worked our whole lives so you could have a career, and now you're throwing it away for what? Some cowboy fantasy? Maya closed her eyes. Her mother had a way of making her feel 12 years old again. It's not a fantasy, Mom. I'm trying to figure out what makes me happy. Happy? Her mother's voice rose to a pitch that made Tyler wince. You think your father and I had time to worry about happy when we were building our business? Happiness is a luxury you earn after you're successful, not before. But what if I'm never successful enough? What if there's always one more promotion, one more achievement I need before I'm allowed to be happy? Don't be ridiculous. You have a good job? A stable future? This is about that man, isn't it? Maya, you can't trust your future to some stranger you met during a moment of crisis. Maya looked at Tyler, who was pretending not to listen to her mother's voice carrying through the phone. Some stranger? Tyler felt like the first person who'd really seen her in years. I have to go, Mom. Maya, if you don't go back to that firm today, don't come crying to us when you're broke and desperate. We won't bail you out of this foolishness. The line went dead. Maya stared at her phone, feeling like she was being pulled apart by invisible hands. Everyone in her old life was telling her to come back, to be responsible, to stop this crazy experiment and return to the safety of her corner office. Tyler squeezed her hand gently. Sounds like a lot of pressure. They're not wrong, though. Maya said, her voice small. I am being irresponsible. I have student loans, obligations. I can't just become a different person because I spent 2 weeks on a ranch. Is that what you think you're doing? Becoming a different person? Maya considered the question seriously. Maybe I'm becoming who I was supposed to be all along, before everyone else told me who I should be instead. They were interrupted by the sound of a truck coming up the drive. Jake from the garage was back with Maya's Honda, looking much cleaner and healthier than when he towed it away. Good as new, Jake announced cheerfully, apparently oblivious to the tension in the air. Transmissions rebuilt, radiators fixed, and I threw in an oil change for free. She should run smooth for years now. Maya stared at her car as if it were a visitor from another planet. 2 weeks ago, getting it fixed had been the most important thing in the world. Now it just looked like a vehicle back to a life she wasn't sure she wanted anymore. Thank you, Jake, she said automatically, signing the repair paperwork. The bill was every bit as expensive as she'd feared, but she paid it without argument. After Jake left, Tyler helped Maya load her few belongings into the car. Neither of them talked about what was happening, but the weight of goodbye hung heavy in the air. You should go, Tyler said finally, though the words seemed to cause him physical pain. You've got a life there, responsibilities. I don't want to be the reason you have regrets later. Maya felt tears threatening. What if I regret leaving here more? Tyler cupped her face gently in his work-roughened hands. Then you'll know and you can come back. But if you don't try to save what you built there, you'll always wonder what might have been. That night, Maya was supposed to drive back to Seattle. Her resignation letter was written, her excuses prepared. But at 10 o'clock, Tyler's prize. Maristella started showing signs of distress. Something was wrong with her pregnancy. She's in labor, but the foal's positioned wrong, Tyler said grimly, examining the horse in her stall. I need to call the vet, but she might not make it in time. Maya found herself pulling on boots and following Tyler back to the stable. What can I do to help? Just talk to her, keep her calm. Animals can sense when people are panicked. The next 6 hours, Maya sat with Stella while Tyler worked to help deliver the foal safely. She'd never seen anything like it, the raw reality of birth, the fierce determination of mother and baby to survive, the way Tyler's gentle hands guided new life into the world. When the foal finally arrived, a perfect little filly with her mother's gentle eyes, Maya was crying with relief and wonder. She'd been part of something miraculous, something that mattered in a way no corporate merger ever could. "I've never felt more useful than I do right here," Maya whispered. Watching the newborn foal struggle to stand on wobbly legs, Tyler looked at her across Stella's stall. Hay in his hair and exhaustion in his eyes, but also something else. Something that looked like love? "Maya," he said quietly, "I need to tell you something." But before he could finish, Maya's phone started ringing. Seattle was calling again, demanding an answer. The two worlds were pulling at her from opposite directions, and Maya realized she was going to have to choose between the life she'd built and the life she was discovering. And she had no idea which choice would lead to happiness, and which would lead to a lifetime of regret. The foal took her first uncertain steps toward her mother, guided by instinct toward the warmth and nourishment she needed to survive. Maya watched her and wondered if she had that same kind of instinct, the ability to know which direction led toward life and which led away from it. Outside the stable, dawn was breaking over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink that no city sunrise could match. Maya had a choice to make, and the morning light seemed to be urging her to choose quickly, before the pull of obligation became stronger than the pull of her heart. Maya drove back to Seattle with her heart breaking a little more with every mile. The city appeared on the horizon like a wall of concrete and glass, blocking out the endless sky she'd grown to love. Traffic noise replaced the peaceful sounds of cattle and wind through grass. The air tasted different too, thick with exhaust and ambition instead of clean mountain freshness. Her apartment felt like a museum of someone else's life. Everything was exactly as she'd left it 3 weeks ago, but Maya felt like a stranger, walking through rooms that belonged to a different person. The expensive furniture looked cold and unwelcoming. The abstract art on her walls seemed meaningless compared to the sunsets she'd been painting on Tyler's porch. Maya unpacked her few belongings from the ranch, hanging Emily's borrowed clothes in her closet next to designer suits that now felt like costumes. The watercolor supplies Tyler had encouraged her to buy sat on her kitchen table, looking out of place among the sleek, modern surfaces. The law firm welcomed her back with a mixture of relief and barely concealed anger. Maya's boss, Mr. Harrison, made it clear that her unexplained absence had caused significant problems. The Morrison merger was behind schedule, and several clients had specifically asked where she'd been. "I hope whatever personal crisis you were dealing with is resolved," Harrison said coldly during their meeting, "because we can't afford any more disruptions. The partners are watching you very carefully now, Maya. One more incident like this, and you're done here." Maya nodded and threw herself back into work, trying to recapture the drive that had once made 60-hour weeks feel normal. But everything felt different now. The corporate jargon that had once felt important now sounded empty. The high-stakes negotiations that had once excited her now seemed like elaborate games played by people who had forgotten what really mattered. Her colleagues treated her like she'd just returned from a mental health crisis. They spoke to her carefully, watching for signs that she might crack again. Maya realized that, in their world, taking 3 weeks to question your life choices was seen as a dangerous breakdown rather than healthy. Self-reflection. The worst part was how the city made her feel physically ill. After weeks of fresh air and peaceful mornings, the constant noise and crowds felt overwhelming. Maya found herself standing at her office window on the 30th floor, looking down at the traffic and feeling trapped behind glass and steel. She tried calling Tyler several times, but the conversations felt strained and artificial. How could she explain the suffocating weight of her old life to someone who woke up every morning to work he loved? How could she describe the way her corner office felt like a beautifully decorated prison cell? "How's the city treating you?" Tyler asked during one of their calls. "Fine," Maya lied, though her voice sounded hollow even to herself. Busy getting caught up on everything I missed. And you're happy to be back? Maya stared out her apartment window at the neighboring building, so close she could see into other people's lives through their windows. I'm where I'm supposed to be, she said carefully. Tyler was quiet for a long moment. That's not the same thing as being happy. After 2 weeks back in Seattle, Maya realized she was slowly disappearing again. The woman who had learned to paint sunsets and deliver foals was fading away, replaced by the efficient corporate lawyer everyone expected her to be. She stopped calling Tyler because hearing his voice made the ache in her chest unbearable. Maya's parents were thrilled that she'd come to her senses and returned to her proper life. They invited her for dinner to celebrate, serving her favorite childhood dishes while lecturing her about responsibility and realistic expectations. We were so worried about you, her mother said, refilling Maya's rice bowl. Running off with some stranger, abandoning your career. Thank goodness you realized how foolish that was. He wasn't a stranger, Mom. Tyler is a good man. I'm sure he's very nice, her father said diplomatically. A nice doesn't pay the bills or provide security. You have a future here, Maya. Don't throw it away for romantic fantasies. Maya wanted to argue, but how could she explain that those 3 weeks on the ranch had felt more real than the past 7 years of her career? How could she tell them that she'd rather struggle financially doing meaningful work than continue making good money at a job that was slowly killing her soul? The breaking point came during a client meeting about a corporate acquisition that would result in massive layoffs. Maya sat in the conference room listening to executives discuss human lives like line items on a spreadsheet, and suddenly she couldn't breathe. The room felt like it was closing in around her. Excuse me, Maya said abruptly, standing up in the middle of the presentation. I need some air. She rushed to the bathroom and locked herself in a stall, hyperventilating and trying not to cry. This was her life. This was what she'd worked so hard to achieve. So why did it feel like she was slowly suffocating? Maya pulled out her phone and looked at the photos she'd taken at the ranch. Tyler teaching her to brush the horses. The sunset paintings she'd created on the porch. The newborn foal taking her first steps. Each image hit her like a physical blow, reminding her of the person she'd been becoming before she let fear drive her back to safety. That night, Maya made a decision that terrified and exhilarated her in equal measure. She opened her laptop and began typing her resignation letter. Not a leave of absence or a sabbatical, but a complete break from the life that was slowly strangling her. The letter was simple and honest. She thanked the firm for the opportunities they'd given her, but explained that she needed to pursue a different path. She would stay 2 weeks to help transition her cases, but after that, she was done. Maya also called a realtor about selling her condo. The thought of giving up her beautiful apartment with its city views and expensive finishes should have made her sad, but instead she felt relief. All the material success she'd accumulated felt like chains holding her back from the life she actually wanted. Her friends and colleagues thought she'd completely lost her mind. They staged interventions over expensive lunches, trying to talk sense into her. Everyone had the same arguments. She was throwing away her career. She barely knew Tyler. She was having some kind of delayed quarter-life crisis. You're giving up everything you've worked for, her best friend Claire said over coffee. For what? Some cowboy you met during a breakdown? I wasn't having a breakdown, Maya said firmly. I was having a breakthrough. For the first time in my adult life, I woke up excited about the day ahead instead of dreading it. That's the honeymoon phase, Claire insisted. Wait until winter hits and you're stuck on a ranch in the middle of nowhere with no career prospects and no future. You'll be begging to come back. Maya had heard all these arguments before, mostly from the voice in her own head. But every time she wavered, she remembered how it felt to watch the sunrise over Tyler's fields, or the pride she'd felt helping deliver that foal, or the way Tyler looked at her like she was someone worth knowing rather than just someone worth using. The hardest conversation was with Tyler himself. Maya finally called him the night before her last day at the firm, her heart pounding as she dialed his number. Maya? Tyler sounded surprised to hear from her. How are you? I'm coming back, Maya said in a rush before she lost her courage. I quit my job, I'm selling my apartment, and I'm coming back to Montana, if you'll have me. Tyler was quiet for so long that Maya thought the call had dropped. Maya, he said finally, his voice rough with emotion. Are you sure? Really sure? Because if you come back here, it won't be as a visitor. It'll be as someone building a life? I've never been more sure of anything, Maya said, tears streaming down her face. I love you, Tyler. I love the ranch. I love the work. I love the person I am when I'm there. I can't pretend any more that. This life makes me happy just because other people think it should. I love you too, Tyler said softly. I've been miserable since you left. This place doesn't feel right without you. Maya laughed through her tears. So is that a yes? Can I come home? Maya, Tyler said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. You never left home, you just took a detour. After they hung up, Maya sat in her expensive apartment surrounded by the life she was about to abandon, and felt lighter than she had in years. Tomorrow she would turn in her resignation and start the process of dismantling everything she'd built in pursuit of other people's dreams. It was terrifying and liberating and absolutely right. Maya Chen, corporate lawyer, was about to disappear forever. But Mia, the artist, the ranch hand, the woman who painted sunsets and delivered foals and fell in love with a cowboy, was about to begin the greatest adventure of her life. Outside her window, the city sparkled with millions of lights, each one representing someone else's dreams and ambitions. But Mia's dreams were waiting for her under the wide Montana sky, where a man with gentle hands and kind eyes was probably sitting on his porch right now, missing her as much as she missed him. Soon, she thought. Very soon she would be home. The moving truck looked ridiculously out of place winding up the dirt road to Tyler's ranch. Maya followed behind in her Honda, which was packed to the roof with the few possessions she'd decided to keep. Everything else had been sold, donated, or thrown away in a whirlwind 2 weeks of dismantling her Seattle life. Her hands shook on the steering wheel as the familiar ranch house came into view. What if Tyler had changed his mind? What if she'd romanticized their connection during the lonely weeks in the city? What if this was the biggest mistake of her life? Tyler was mending fence wire in the front pasture when he heard the trucks coming up the drive. He straightened slowly, setting down his tools with deliberate care. Maya could see him even from a distance, and her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. The moving truck stopped first, and Maya pulled up behind it, suddenly too nervous to get out of her car. Through the windshield, she watched Tyler walk toward them, his long stride eating up the ground between the pasture and the driveway. Maya finally forced herself to open the car door and step out. Tyler stopped about 10 feet away, his hands shoved deep in his jacket pockets, his face unreadable. So, he said quietly, you came back? I hope that offer to stay is still good, Maya said, echoing the words she'd spoken the first night they met. Her voice sounded smaller than she'd intended. Tyler studied her face for a long moment, as if trying to convince himself she was really there. Maya, he said finally, what about your job, your life in Seattle, your family? Maya took a deep breath. I quit my job yesterday. My condo sold faster than my realtor expected, and my family ... She paused, remembering the painful final conversation with her parents. My family thinks I've lost my mind. But this is my life now, this is what I want. Tyler's face broke into the slow smile she'd missed so desperately. Are you sure? Because there's no going back from this. Once you're part of this place, it gets into your blood. You become part of it, and it becomes part of you. I'm counting on it, Maya said, and suddenly Tyler was moving toward her, closing the distance between them in 3 quick strides. He pulled her into his arms right there in the muddy driveway, spinning her around while she laughed and cried at the same time. When he finally set her down, Maya could see tears in his eyes too. I thought I'd lost you, Tyler murmured against her hair. These past months felt like the longest of my life. You didn't lose me, Maya said, pulling back to look at his face. I just had to figure out who I really was before I could be with you properly. The moving truck driver cleared his throat apologetically. Hate to interrupt, but where do you want this stuff? Tyler and Maya spent the rest of the day unpacking boxes and trying to figure out where her city furniture would fit in his rustic ranch house. Most of it looked completely out of place. Her sleek, modern coffee table clashed horribly with Tyler's handmade wooden furniture, and her abstract paintings looked bizarre hanging next to his family photos and rodeo ribbons. We can store most of this in the barn until you decide what you want to keep, Tyler suggested diplomatically as they stared at a pile of designer home accessories that made no sense in their new context. I don't need any of it, Maya said, surprising herself with how easily the words came. I was trying so hard to create the perfect life that I forgot to actually live it. Most of this stuff never made me happy anyway. They ended up donating almost everything to the local church, keeping only Maya's art supplies, her books, and a few personal items that held real meaning. Watching the volunteer truck drive away with the remnants of her old life, Maya felt lighter than she had in years. That evening, Tyler cooked dinner while Maya painted at the kitchen table, working on a watercolor of the view from the front porch. The scene was so domestic and peaceful that Maya had to pinch herself to believe it was real. I've been thinking, Tyler said as he set a plate of his famous beef stew in front of her, about what you'll do for work. I mean, the ranch is doing okay, but it's not going to support two people without some additional income. Maya had been thinking about the same thing. I had an idea about that, actually. I researched it before I came back. This county doesn't have a single lawyer serving the rural communities. People have to drive 3 hours to the nearest city just to get a will drawn up or deal with a land dispute. Tyler's eyes lit up with interest. You thinking about starting your own practice? A small one, nothing fancy. Just helping local families with legal needs they can't afford to handle in the city. Property transfers, estate planning, small business contracts. The kind of law that actually helps people instead of making rich corporations richer. That sounds perfect, Tyler said, reaching across the table to squeeze her hand. There's an empty storefront on Main Street that would make a great office. Old Mrs. Patterson has been trying to rent it for years. Maya felt a flutter of excitement in her chest. Really? It wouldn't compete with any existing businesses? Honey, the closest lawyer is Dr. Mitchell, and he retired 15 years ago. People around here have been needing someone like you for a long time. They talked late into the night about Maya's business plans and how she could integrate her legal practice with helping Tyler expand the ranch. Maya had ideas about agritourism, hosting city families who wanted their kids to experience ranch life. Tyler shared his dreams of organic certification and direct-to-consumer beef sales. We could build something really special here, Maya said, curled up against Tyler's side on the couch in front of the fireplace. Not just a business, but a whole way of life. We already have, Tyler said softly, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. Over the next few weeks, Maya threw herself into building her new life with the same determination she'd once applied to climbing the corporate ladder. But this time, the work felt meaningful in a way her old job never had. She rented the storefront on Main Street and spent days cleaning and painting, transforming the dusty space into a welcoming office. Tyler helped her build simple wooden furniture that matched the town's rustic aesthetic. Maya hung her watercolor paintings on the walls, scenes of local landmarks that made clients feel at home instead of intimidated. Word spread quickly through the small community that a real lawyer had moved to town. Maya's first client was an elderly rancher who needed help transferring his property to his children. The man had been putting off the legal work for years because the cost and complexity seemed overwhelming. I never thought I'd be able to afford proper legal help, he said as Maya explained the process in simple terms. You're an answer to prayer, young lady. Maya's practice grew steadily as she proved herself to be competent, affordable, and genuinely interested in helping people solve their problems rather than creating new ones. She helped young couples buy their first homes, assisted small business owners with contracts, and mediated neighbor disputes that had been simmering for years. The work was completely different from her corporate law career, but infinitely more satisfying. Maya went to bed each night knowing she'd made real people's lives better. not just moved money around between rich people's accounts. Tyler watched her flourish with obvious pride and love. "You're like a different person," he told her one evening. As they worked together in the garden Maya had planted behind the house. "I mean, you're still you, but you're brighter somehow, like someone turned on a light inside you." Maya looked up from the tomato plants she was staking, dirt under her fingernails and sweat on her forehead, feeling more beautiful and confident than she ever had in a designer suit. "I feel like I'm finally awake after years of sleepwalking through someone else's life." The physical demands of ranch life had changed Maya's body too. Her soft office worker's muscles had been replaced by genuine strength from lifting hay bales and wrestling with fence posts. Her pale city complexion had been kissed golden by the Montana sun. She'd never felt healthier or more alive, but the biggest change was in her relationship with Tyler. Living and working together every day had deepened their connection in ways Maya hadn't expected. They developed an easy rhythm of shared responsibilities and comfortable silences. Tyler taught Maya the subtleties of cattle behavior and weather prediction, while Maya helped him understand complex agricultural regulations and tax advantages. Their first real fight came 6 weeks after Maya's return, when a late spring blizzard threatened to destroy Tyler's winter hay supply. Maya wanted to hire professional help to move the bales to safety, while Tyler insisted they could handle it themselves to save money. "We can't afford to lose that hay, but we also can't afford to pay a crew," Tyler said, frustrated and exhausted, after fighting the storm all day. "We can't afford not to pay them if it means losing everything," Maya shot back. "Sometimes you have to spend money to save money." They worked through the disagreement like adults, finding a compromise that used both Maya's business sense and Tyler's practical knowledge. Afterward, lying in bed listening to the wind howl outside while their rescued hay sat safely in the barn, Maya realized this was what partnership really looked like. "I never had fights like that with David," Maya said thoughtfully. "What kind of fights did you have?" "The kind where he told me what we were going to do, and I pretended to agree. I was so afraid of conflict." 1 year later, Maya stood in her law office on Main Street, looking at the framed newspaper article hanging on her wall. "Local attorney helps save family farm," read the headline, with a photo of Maya shaking hands with the Johnson family after successfully challenging an unfair foreclosure. It wasn't the kind of recognition she'd chased in her corporate days, but it meant more to her than any partnership announcement ever could have. The past year had tested Maya and Tyler in ways they never expected. Their first winter together was brutal, with temperatures dropping to 20 below zero and blizzards that lasted for days. Maya learned what it really meant to live in the country when the power went out for a week and they had to melt snow for drinking water while keeping the animals alive in sub-zero conditions. "City girls not looking so tough now," Tyler had teased one morning as Maya struggled to break ice on the water troughs with numb fingers. "City girls tougher than she looks," Maya had shot back, swinging the heavy mallet with determination. By the end of that winter she could split firewood, deliver calves, and fix a broken water pipe without batting an eye. Spring brought different challenges. Maya's law practice was growing faster than she'd expected, which was wonderful but overwhelming. She found herself working late nights to keep up with the demand, trying to help every person who walked through her door. Tyler worried she was falling back into old patterns of overwork. "You don't have to save everyone," he told her one evening when she came home after 9 o'clock for the third time that week. "I know," Maya said, collapsing onto the couch beside him. "But Mrs. Rodriguez is about to lose her house because her husband's medical bills destroyed their savings. And the Peterson kids need help with their dad's estate before the state takes everything. These aren't corporate mergers, Tyler. These are people's lives." Tyler pulled her against his side, his strong hands working out the knots in her shoulders. "And you can't help anyone if you work yourself to death. Remember what you learned about balance?" Maya knew he was right. She hired a part-time paralegal and learned to set boundaries with clients who expected her to be available 24 hours a day. It was a different kind of success than she'd known before, measured in families helped rather than billable. Hours in problems solved rather than deals closed. The ranch was thriving too. Tyler's organic certification had come through, and they were selling premium beef directly to restaurants in 3 different cities. Maya's business skills had helped Tyler negotiate better contracts and streamline operations. The agritourism program they'd started was booking months in advance, with city families eager to give their children a taste of real ranch life. Maya loved hosting the visiting families, watching kids who'd never seen a cow up close learn to gather eggs and brush horses. She'd started offering painting workshops for the adults, teaching them to capture the beauty of the Montana landscape in watercolors. "You're a natural teacher?" Tyler observed one afternoon, watching Maya help a frustrated businessman from Chicago paint his first sunset. "Patient and encouraging. Emily would have loved seeing you work with kids." Maya still felt a flutter of uncertainty whenever Tyler mentioned his late wife, but it was different now. Emily wasn't competition or a ghost to be overcome. She was part of Tyler's story, part of what made him the compassionate man Maya loved. Sometimes Maya even found herself talking to Emily's photo, asking for advice about how to handle Tyler's stubborn streak or what recipe Emily would have used for the church potluck. The biggest test of their relationship came in late summer when Maya's parents finally visited. They'd been threatening to come see what their daughter had thrown away her life for, and Maya had been dreading the confrontation for months. Her mother stepped out of the rental car wearing designer clothes and a look of barely concealed horror at the rural setting. Her father was more diplomatic, but Maya could see him calculating the property value and finding it lacking compared to her Seattle condo. "So this is where you live now," her mother said, looking at the ranch house like it might contain dangerous wildlife. "This is home," Maya corrected gently, leading them onto the porch where Tyler waited with nervous politeness. Tyler had cleaned up for the occasion, wearing his best shirt and newest jeans, but Maya's parents still looked at him like he was an exotic species they couldn't quite identify. The awkwardness was painful to watch. Dinner was a disaster. Maya's father peppered Tyler with questions about his education and business prospects, while her mother made pointed comments about Maya's appearance and lifestyle choices. "You look so thin, Maya, and your hands are so rough. Are you getting enough protein out here? Are there even doctors nearby if something happens?" Maya felt the familiar weight of her parents' disapproval pressing down on her, making her question everything she'd built. But then Tyler reached under the table and squeezed her hand, and she remembered who she was now. "I'm healthy and happy, Mom. Healthier than I've ever been, actually. I sleep through the night, I wake up excited about my day, and I'm doing work that actually matters. Work that pays a fraction of what you used to make," her father pointed out. "Money isn't everything, Dad. I'd rather make enough doing something meaningful than get rich helping rich people get richer." Her parents stayed for 3 days that felt like 3 months. They criticized everything from the isolation to the lack of cultural amenities to Maya's regression from corporate lawyer to small-town attorney. But on their last morning, something shifted. Maya was in the stable helping Tyler with a difficult foaling when her parents came looking for her. They found her elbow-deep in hay and mud, helping bring new life into the world. Her mother watched in amazement as Maya's gentle hands guided the foal safely into Tyler's arms. "I've never seen you like this," her mother said quietly after the crisis had passed and the healthy foal was nursing from its mother. "Like what?" "Confident, competent, like you know exactly who you are and what you're doing." Maya looked down at her dirty clothes and muddy boots, then at Tyler's proud smile as he watched her wash her hands. "I do know who I am now. For the first time in my life, I really know." Her father was examining Tyler's business records when Maya found him later that afternoon. "Your boyfriend knows what he's doing," he admitted grudgingly. "This operation is more sophisticated than I expected, and profitable, if these numbers are accurate. Tyler's a smart man, Dad. Just because he didn't go to Harvard doesn't mean he's not intelligent." When her parents left, the goodbye was warmer than Maya had expected. Her mother actually hugged Tyler, and her father shook his hand with something approaching respect. "I still think you're crazy," her mother said, holding Maya tight. "But Can see that you're happy. Really happy in a way you never were before. I guess that's what matters. After they left, Maya and Tyler sat on the porch swing, emotionally exhausted but relieved. That went better than I expected, Tyler said diplomatically. Maya laughed. They hated everything about this place, but I think they finally understand that I love it. That's enough for now. As autumn arrived and the 1-year anniversary of that first stormy night approached, Tyler began acting strangely. He was secretive about his trips to town, and Maya caught him having hushed phone conversations that ended abruptly whenever she walked into the room. Maya tried not to feel hurt by his mysterious behavior, but she couldn't help wondering if he was having second thoughts about their life together. Maybe the reality of sharing his space with someone else was wearing thin. Maybe he missed the solitude he'd found after Emily's death. The truth revealed itself on a perfect October evening when Tyler suggested they take a walk to watch the sunset from the hill behind the house. Maya had painted this view dozens of times, but it never stopped taking her breath away. The sky was painted in brilliant shades of orange and pink, and the mountains rose like purple shadows against the horizon. "Remember when you first asked to stay one night?" Tyler said as they reached the top of the hill. Maya smiled at the memory. "I was so desperate and scared. I had no idea that asking for one night would change my entire life." Tyler reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Maya's heart stopped as he dropped to one knee on the grass where they'd shared so many sunset conversations. "Maya," Tyler said, his voice shaking with emotion, "that night you knocked on my door, you weren't just asking for shelter from the storm. You were asking for a chance at something real. Something honest, something that would last." Maya couldn't speak. Tears were streaming down her face as Tyler opened the box to reveal a simple, beautiful ring with a stone that caught the sunset light like captured fire. "I know this isn't the biggest diamond or the fanciest setting, but it's real like everything else between us. Maya-chan, will you stay for a lifetime? Will you marry me and build something permanent together?" "Yes," Maya whispered, then louder through her tears. "Yes, of course, yes." Tyler slipped the ring onto her finger with shaking hands, then stood to kiss her as the sun set behind them in a blaze of gold and crimson. The ring fit perfectly, like it had been made specifically for her hand, for this moment, for this life. They'd built together. "I love you," Maya said against his lips. "I love you and this place and the life we've made. I can't imagine being anywhere else."